Here's today's job. It is a middle terrace house, built, I suppose, circa 1910. I've got to try and avoid not getting run over. I'm standing in the road. The chimney up there belongs to this house. It's not shared with the one next door. Built over the party wall. So not much to it really. It's brick chimney. There's a couple of missing mortar joints. And the walls are 450mm thick solid stone, and I believe it is completely stone if we judge from walls up in the roof space. Precious little sign of any sort of movement. There is a crack through that lintel there, which suggests that there has been a little bit of differential settlement across the property, but nothing very exciting going on. And I do believe we have a damp-proof course, but how the hell are you going to find it in there? The house next door goes over this tunnel. But down here, somewhere, I think here it is, we can see, firstly, we've got an original kind of mineral felt damp-proof course. So I wonder how well that survived inside a wall. I mean, if it's not got any vegetable fibre inside it, it won't have decayed, will it? But I don't really know what it's made of exactly. And just up above, you see one of those blokes has been around drilling holes and pumping chemicals in the wall to magically make it dry. And through the middle of the tunnel we've got these load-bearing structures. I mean, this is basically an example of how lintels are built in solid stone walls. You don't see the lintels inside the house normally, but this is how it will be made up. So you've got your decorative natural stone ashlar, if you like, lintel in the outside skin of the building. Nice lintel hidden by a bunch of ugly soil pipes, but nevertheless, behind it, holding up the bulk of the masonry inside the wall, you have two timber lintels. There they are, and that sort of construction detail will be repeated in most solid stone houses that you look at. There's a garden, very nice. It's sort of a wildlife garden, this one. Gone to a lot of trouble to make it look like that. And that's the back of my house. Now, how the hell am I supposed to do a survey of that then? Well, we can see something. So this would have been a window opening once upon a time, and somebody has knocked out the masonry below the window, which is probably, roughly speaking, where those bricks are, although they seem to be slightly different heights each side, and put in a very ugly concrete lintel underneath the original stone lintel. So it's rather spoilt the appearance of the house. Not that you can see the house anyway. And then we've got this, if I can find somewhere to stand, regular 280mm thick brick-faced cavity wall extension with a bit of maintenance and repair required. And here or there you can see a drill hole where someone's put cavity wall insulation into it. Plastic damp-proof course, nothing very exciting going on there. Here's the roof space then. We've got a roof ridge, and the rafters are all pretty much nicely attached to the roof ridge, and then they go down there where they are fixed at their feet by the ceiling joist, which you can pretty much work out, tie the roof together from front to back. And then the rafters are sitting on these pretty damn substantial purlins, one little strut sitting under the purlin, and they're sitting on, well, ultimately sitting back on the ceiling joists on account of that little plank underneath them. So that's not ideal, but anyway, big fat purlins should be doing the job all right. There is close boarding over the rafters. I'm not quite sure what the point of this is. I mean, sometimes it's fitted as a sort of precursor to the underlay, so it adds a sort of barrier, secondary barrier to rain penetration, but it needs to be properly close. There's gaps in it here, numerous gaps, so any rainwater that does get under the tiles will just drop in one of those gaps, so it's not performing that function. So maybe it's just a sort of lateral bracing, but that would be unusual in a house of this age. So the reason for this boarding on the outside of the rafters is not clear. I mean, it will be providing lateral bracing, but whether that's its purpose is not clear to me. What it does do is it stops you seeing the underlay, but even up there you can just about make out there are a couple of little splits in it, so it looks like a sort of 1970s, earlier possibly, underlay, which is possibly at the end of its serviceable life. What the close boarding will probably stop it doing is flapping around in the wind, so it might preserve that. Over there, that I guess is a chimney breast, but must have been such an abundance of stone when this house was built that they're even using it for the party walls out of sight. Down there we've got, I could measure it, about 100mm of insulation, and that's sitting over lath and plaster ceilings. Okay, I've lifted the insulation just a little bit, and you can see there that corrugated looking stuff, that is evidence of a lath and plaster ceiling, and those bulges where the plaster has been pushed between the laths. So that's the evidence for a lath and plaster ceiling. That over there is an example of why you shouldn't use chipboard to support water tanks in the roof, because it has got wet and it's saggy and it's going to fall apart eventually, and all the water in those tanks will end up in a great big heap on somebody's head while they're sleeping at night. So that's yeah, should be a plyboard deck, shouldn't it really, or something like that. And yeah, so there'll be a chimney breast and flues all incorporated into the mass of the external walls. This guy focusing, focus, there. Anyway, I have to get down now because I'm getting a sore arse sitting here. Poke a camera out of the window and see what we can see. That's an interlocking concrete tile covering to the extension roof. It's gone, isn't it? Overlapping clay tiles, lead flashings, and a lead valley by the look of things. There's a broken concrete tile there just to the front bottom of the valley, and a very rotten fascia behind that gutter. Nothing very bad going on though. It's a grey day. The lighting in this house is rubbish, and there's a great big bush outside every window, so it's really quite dark in here. But can you get the impression maybe that there's a hump in the floor? So it's full height, meets the skirting board under the radiator, and over there in particular there's quite a big gap under the skirting board. You can tell with the floorboards going from one side of the house to the other that the floor joists will be going front to back and sitting in the wall at the front. So my guess is over there anyway, the floor joist has rotted and the floor's gone down with it, possibly over in that corner too. There you go. Feels relatively firm, but a little bit of spring also suggests a little bit of rot. But the shape of the floor suggests it's quite rotten. Look at the back though, that's much more fun. Here, let's get rid of those sight notes, they're in the way. You can see a great big gap under the skirting board, and here that's what happens to a damp floor joist. It's kind of difficult to work out what's going on here really. You would hope that the floor joist was sitting on a damp proof membrane. It's in a solid wall, so moisture can kind of migrate up the wall a little bit and around the end of the floor joist and get into the end, but here you can see the floor joist is pretty much submerged in debris, so it's not a nice crisp clean end to the wall. It might have something to do with this strange looking sill that's gone in under this window. So yeah, going back here again, I suspect this is a window opening and someone's knocked it out underneath to create a door, and they made a frightful mess of it. So that might be a contributing factor. That damp looking soil there, I think, is actually disintegrated wood. And that black colour, I mean, I don't want to suggest it's definitely dry rot, because it's not very cuboidal. You tend to get these nice cuboidal shapes to dry rot. And does it really matter anyway? It's rot. The last thing, I suppose, is fairly obvious, even with that patio door there, is the ground outside the house will have gone up and over the damp-proof course. So yes, it's a typical example of penetrating dampness, just damp-proof course decommissioned by this concrete slab that's gone up and over the damp-proof course, and moisture is just migrating through the wall straight into the floor joist ends, which have pretty much collapsed as a result. Disintegrated, that's what they've done, they've disintegrated. You used to see this sort of discoloration a lot during the old days. I mean, it's quite artistic really, but this is what happens when people sit in their living room and smoke cigarettes all day. Everything turned into this sort of sepia yellow colour, and this is evidently where pictures were on the wall, so you can see the enormous contrast in colour, but everything in this house is kind of yellowish, so I hate to imagine how many thousands of cigarettes got smoked in here. And it's the same in here. Everything's just a sort of murky yellow. And looks like somebody tried to set fire to the house as well. Let's just have a general roam around the house. I think this front room is the bit with all the load-bearing masonry in it. Sounds like it anyway. There would possibly not have been an opening in this wall at all, so I don't think they've enlarged it, I think they've created it. So some sort of load-bearing structure will have been required over there. The floors are at marginally different levels between these two rooms, so somebody's put this sort of concrete fillet in there, cement fillet, which is broken up terribly. And then I think we've probably discussed the knackered nature of the floor. Here we have a lovely old fireplace, stained with nicotine, and some motifs of what? And what are they of? Do they have to be of something very pretty, whatever they are? Here we have a very damp area of wall which coincides with a rusty metal downpipe outside. So you can put two and two together. I can't really get a good look at that downpipe externally, so I can't see that it's actively leaking, but that would be the suggestion, wouldn't it? And modern angle beading in the wall here, so it's obviously been replastered once, and it's rusting because the wall's full of moisture. So I think we have already decided there's a rusty metal downpipe, and I think at some point I've probably discussed that the ground outside's gone up and over the damp-proof course. Rotting floors, blown plaster, rusting metalwork. The back end of those skirting boards probably rotting, so lots to sort out there. Probably just a case of lowering the ground level and the damp-proof course can come back to life. Get all that bush out of the way and let the sunshine and breezes do all the drying out. There's the inside of the modern extension. Bit boring really. Upstairs, front left bedroom, a load of black stuff in the corner of the room. What's that? I mean, it is probably just a case of condensation building up behind whatever's here, a wardrobe or the bed even, possibly. We've got a window there with an opening lower part, so that in the event of a fire you can get out. All timber partitioning up here. A little bit of a thermal fracture between the timber partition and the stone wall. And a broken door. Front right room. There's a little bit of cracking to the ceiling just to remind you that it's of lath and plaster construction. And down there, I lifted that floorboard because it wasn't fixed, but There you can see the top side of a lath and plaster ceiling. All the plaster's oozed through between the laths, and then it folds over. You can see how it's folded over and hooks itself back onto the laths to hold itself in place. I suppose I'd better put that back. And somewhere around here we found a bit of woodworm. Remarkably little woodworm in the house, but there it is. A bit of woodworm. Are you going to focus? There. And you see these sort of tubes or lines across the surface of the wood. That's because the woodworm thought he was quite secure between the wood and the linoleum or whatever was over the carpet. So he's gone through the surface of the wood rather than the middle of it. Little crack over the door, or between door and window, so things have been moving around marginally, expanding and contracting. I don't think that's necessarily a sign of any structural movement, particularly. Ah, this was interesting. Yeah, so this is where we've got our extension built onto the back of the house. You can just about see it out there. I've probably got a bit of a film where I stuck the camera out the window, but evidently a valley is created in the roof. Valleys carry, come on, a concentrated volume of rainwater, so if the valley starts blocking up, it just starts backing up and finding its way into the house. So that's why we've got all this muck coming through the walls, and some of it's a bit fluffy. Got any light on in here? There you can see that fluffy stuff. That'll be salts being deposited in the paper as the moisture dried out. And any light here as well? Nope. But anyway, it obviously leaked profusely before anyone did anything about it. So it's always a good idea to have a look at walls and ceilings under valleys. Well, there you have it. A lovely house just waiting to be rediscovered.